Hello everybody, it's the 3rd of March today and you're looking at an empty turntable because this next tree that I'm going to be working on is a proper beast. Or should I say, these next trees. One day it'll be this tree. Hello everybody, it's the 2nd of March today and I've just been doing some cleaning up on this fusion project of Beech. Hopefully will one day be one large conical tapered trunk. At the moment it's still very much about 30-40 trees. I forget exactly how many was in the bundle. In fact I don't even think it's that many, but for now what I've done is I've just, hence the mess on the floor, cleaned off all the old leaves, pulled up all the weeds and cleaned up the surface of the compost, and I'm now going to add some slow release fertilizer and top dress it with a bit of fresh compost ready for spring. Apologies for the murky background on this, but this pot and trees are so heavy, almost impossible to move on my own. Certainly don't want to be lifting it up onto the bench on my own. So if I just pop in this regular sized drinks can, you can begin to see the scale that this trunk will have when it is finally fused. We have fusion happening in certain places, up and down the trunk, a lot more at the top than at the base, but these trunks are beginning now to swell one into the other. I've had to put in a few extra pieces where I had gaps, and I may well do that again if I have another, or when I do another repot. Last year was when it was repotted into this, so it's going to stay in this large pot for a couple more years, and I can't give you a 360 because again it's so heavy that I don't want to do me back in trying to move it. So because it's such a large pot, I'm going to give it a really good generous helping of this controlled release fertilizer. As I say, there are a lot of trees, so it's not just one tree's nervous system, growing system, whatever you want to call it, that I'm having to feed. It's until they're fully fused, they're essentially feeding all of the trees. So for that reason I'm being very generous. And then just a layer back on top to replace the soil that came off when I cleaned off the weeds and things. The controlled release fertilizer only gives off the feed when it's warm enough and wet enough for the plants to be properly growing. So by burying it, that takes care of the keeping it moist part. Well, obviously once I've given it a drink, and then the temperatures as they warm will take care of the rest, as it were. So what I want to do now is cut back on these branches. Now I'm not going to cut them all back all the way because I want them to feed and fatten the trunks, but I don't want them to keep extending and keep extending and keep extending forever, because as much as anything else they're just going to keep coming out across the pathway here and make themselves a blooming nuisance. But also by chopping them back like this, it should, in theory, cause some back budding, which will give me better and more choice branches in future years, once the fusion has taken place. So I'm just cutting back to a bud, and I'm trying not to cut back further than the first bud from the trunk, because beech sometimes they just won't. If you cut off all the buds or all the branches with buds, it'll just die back, whereas if there's a bud to draw the energy, they don't. So I'm just going to go round the tree, chopping back to buds, and bringing everything back into a semblance of structure. As I say, I don't want great big branches 6 foot wide, although that would feed diffusion more quickly, but it could also make, then bringing it back to back into control, a more labour intensive and difficult task, if that makes sense. Sometimes I wonder if any of these things I say make sense. Let me know if I'm doing it or not. I'm also trying to take off branches that are heading for the sky, as opposed to growing outwards. In the long run, most of these will disappear anyway, but that kind of presupposes that we actually get the fusion that I desire. Let's move you up a little. Right, as you can see, it's a kind of jumbled mess, but we are getting fusion in places. There are some wire scars, but they will eventually be subsumed into the trunk, and maybe at a later date, when the tree is actively growing, some more, I can actually carve a bit of that away and get a smoother scar. As often is the case, the tree's growing more profusely at the top, which means the fusion at the top is better, but it also means I'm getting thicker branches at the top than I'm getting at the bottom at the moment, which isn't good. So we'll just keep chopping back some of these big old branches, and try and replace them with finer ones where I can. Okay, turn that off, do the rest around the back and come back to you. Here for example is the perfect, if I can hold the camera steady without wobbling it too much, it's only got 3 feet on, 2 of its 3 feet on the floor. A perfect example of where I have quite a long branch, but I can shorten it back to this side shoot, which again will hopefully induce some back budding, but also gives some nice taper into the branch, and sending it off in the direction I want. Okay, so I've removed a big chunk at the top here. This piece I think needs wiring up as an apex. Lighten that load, a bud there which will come out, and I think that's probably all I'm going to do for this tree today. It'll be allowed to grow freely again over this summer, and maybe get the odd trim if the it gets too bushy at the top, but otherwise it'll just grow freely. Okay, just so you can see what a beast it is. In fact, there's a collie for scale, and makes a change from the can. All that's left to be done is to say thank you so much for watching. Please do look after yourselves. Do all the usual YouTube things, the liking, the subscribing and the commenting. Most of all, please stay safe.